welcome to another episode of At Witt's End. I'm Ken. That's Carson next to me. He's 6,000 miles away, 9 hours difference, and he's got his Capri Sun.
My Capri Sun. I've never saw these in the U.S., but I really enjoy these.
Wait,
So,
they had
orange and
Capri
peach.
Sun in the little bags
Well,
for
in
soccer,
the little bags, but not these ones. These are like adult Capri Suns.
does it taste different?
Yeah, it tastes a little bit different. A little bit more normal juice, not like a fake
Kitty
juice
sugar
Capri
juice.
Sun. Yeah. So it's good.
Yeah.
But
By the
yeah,
way, folks,
yeah,
we're not getting paid to say or boost up, promote Capri Sun. So send us some Capri
yeah,
Sun or whoever makes it. General Mills, I don't know.
yeah.
All
I
right.
enjoy
Well,
the Capri Sun of Europe. There's a few different Capri Sun drinks I like here.
yeah.
So
Well, it's been an interesting week. I mean, F1's back in season, obviously, but the Queen passed away. So I'm kind
Queen
of wondering
Lizzie.
what's the take on the continent of Europe in the EU.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you know Queen Elizabeth II, she, longest standing monarch in the United Kingdom's history, right? So 70
Shoot, I
years.
think anybody's.
Yeah, so she was around for so long and so much change, and
Yeah,
you
how
talk
many prime
about
ministers? Like 13 or something.
15 and put a
15.
new one that just started. I
Starting with
mean,
Winston Churchill.
yeah, 1952 I think it was.
I thought
When
she started earlier than that. I don't know.
when she met Churchill. But it's crazy to think about. And you think about a time in history too, with how fast everything has changed. To serve that long and to serve over this much change, like she basically served from the end of World War II to, now we're talking virtual reality and
Yeah, and to
like,
weather the criticism of a monarchy and still be as popular as she is, both in Britain, well, globally, quite frankly. Even
yeah,
I would consider the enemies of Britain still respect her. But it is interesting that, especially in the United States, where we fought against Britain, yet the royal family is almost, I don't want to say more loved here than there, uh, but
yeah, they're
it's
well
all over the
regarded.
news. It's
Yeah,
it's all positive too. That's what
yeah,
I find interesting. Or most of it now. There's getting to be some controversy about quote they're colonialists and all that kind of stuff. But
and
as
it's
far as I'm concerned, pure respect for her. She's done a unbelievable job. The dynamics of not just a normal family but a royal family. Obviously, I don't agree with the belief that the royal blood is any better than a commoner's blood. But I do understand the attraction. We don't have true royalty. That's why I think celebrities are such a big thing here in the United States.
yeah,
Um, and I think that's why we have the admiration for the royal family. Although,
yeah. It's
let's face it, we do have, was it Prince Harry and our
Megan.
little,
Yeah.
yeah, our little princess, but they're no longer
Some
of that
interesting
stature.
interesting things with the transition with her family and her kids. They got some new titles. Because even though Harry and Meghan have stepped away from the monarchy, the kids haven't. And so the kids actually have new
Is that true?
titles. Yeah, the
They
kids have
retained
new
their
titles.
titles?
They actually have new ones, yeah, that Meghan didn't even know about. Like some Duke of somewhere, Duke of Sussex or something, and but both the kids got new titles with the new king.
Wow, I thought when they renounced their positions that was cut off as far as the family. So the bloodline kind of circumvents those two and goes directly to the kids.
No, Harry is still he's still in the succession tree. Even though they've stepped away, I think they are still technically in the succession tree after William and William's kids. And
Really?
so it won't. I don't think it'll get to him ever. So I don't think there's a chance. But
But what if they
theoretically,
still
he's still
draw
in.
a stipend, or if they're still being paid by the monarchy? But
That's where I
that's a
think
whole
actually
different
they've split.
episode.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I mean
so
it's the queen that
getting
we need to pay respects to, and now
yeah,
we have
getting back
King Charles,
to Queen Lizzie. So one of the things I've heard that I
Queen
really think
Lizzie.
is Queen Lizzie is the best way to describe her is that she was boring, but in a really good way. She
Hmm.
was very she was never very controversial, but she was always very positive. She didn't go too far one way or the other, and I think that's where her reign as the monarch being so, I want to say central, but the politics and traditional government, modern government, are very divisive. Whereas
Well, she was a
Queen
steady ship
Elizabeth,
in a
yeah,
turbulent
was
sea.
very, talking through those 15 prime ministers, she was constant in all of those, and she never swayed to one side or the other. And she always seemed very kind, and she was the queen, so there was always some I don't know, some she's royalty thing, but she always on camera was she looked to be very kind and
Yeah, I
I
think
don't want to
she
say down to
was.
earth because I don't think she was down to earth. She was the queen,
Yeah, I
but
think it was hard to be down to earth. She seemed somewhat
yeah,
humble, patient, understanding.
she
I
cracked jokes.
She would have been one of the people that if you could have a dinner with, who would it be? I'd love to be transported into the tea room with her and have a beer or some bourbon with her and actually find out what she thinks of a lot of things. Uh,
Yeah,
I think not just her country, but let's face it, her family put a lot of stress on her, from Charles and Diane to Andrew's latest scandals too. So,
yeah,
uh, but she fared it well, and the
and it's
dynamics with her sister too.
yeah, it's interesting talking. Talking King Charles now. King Charles, he is taking Charles as his name. He could have
Fat Finger
taken one of
Charles.
his other, yeah, his gigantic creepy fingers. If you don't know what we're talking about, look up fingers or fingers pictures of Charles's fingers. They're weird. Um, but he could have taken one of a number of names that he has. He took Charles the Third, I believe.
Wait,
And I think
that wasn't his given name at birth.
it was, but he was
Oh,
given other names, and he could have taken like Edward or something else. I don't know, Bob.
oh,
I don't know. He had a few different names, but he took Charles
yeah,
to
royal
be
names.
yeah. But what's interesting, I think, with Charles is you think back to when Diana and him were together. They separated. Diana passed away. His you know his status in the royal family and or his regard by the general public was, I think a lot of people hated him for what he did and who he
Yeah,
was at that time.
I
Um,
think Diana was so likable, and I think even the Queen liked Diana.
yeah, but it's interesting because I've heard this talked about a lot on news shows how he's really flipped. I think, and I don't know if he's flipped it all the way, but like he doesn't get that from most people. A lot of people nowadays see him for. I think he's very into like his environmental affairs. He does a lot of charity work. He has like a charity that he's very into for the young people of England. And these are things remain to be seen if he is actually going to be doing them.
Well, I mean, that's kind
Um,
of what they do now that they really don't have any power.
yeah, but it remains to be seen if he'll continue these type of affairs as king because he can't really sway too far on issues. He's got to
Well,
be
I've even
very
heard there's talk about that Charles has always favored. I don't want to say ending the monarchy, but scaling it back. So I doubt that's true,
yeah.
but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think Charles will be the last of generationally. Uh, I think there's a divide between him and his sons, and I think it'll be interesting when his son becomes king. What how that'll change the monarchy because I think
Yeah.
Charles is still kind of that prior generational like
Well, he's the old
old
school. Yeah.
monarchy still. When you get to his kids, I think they're very modern in terms of his boys like their way of thinking and how they are in society. And I think they like are more
Why?
similar to Diana and how they're regarded in society
Well,
as well.
definitely. And I don't think that they are of the belief that royal blood is that important anymore. Or let's face
Yeah.
it, or Prince Harry wouldn't have married Meghan Markle,
Megan, yeah.
because that ain't royal blood.
And he yeah, he got a he really he split like it was pretty unheard
But
of for
who's
that split.
I can't think of her name. The Prince William's wife. I mean, she's kind of
Um,
that true British royalty. Uh,
not Midian.
Gosh, she's probably the most popular after Diana now, I would
Kate,
think.
Kate,
Kate,
or
yeah.
Catherine,
Kate
yeah,
Middleton,
Catherine, Kate Middleton.
yeah.
Yeah, she I think is very traditional and like
And I think
she's
she's somewhat
very
beloved. I
monarchy.
think, yeah.
Yeah, I think
But
people
I
really
think
like
people love
her.
her. Yeah.
I think William and Kate are actually very well liked, and I've never seen like it doesn't seem like they've been in any real true controversies. They've been in like
No.
those like kind of faux controversies the British tabloids push, but
And then you
real
got,
controversies they haven't been in.
yeah, Markle and Harry, somewhat controversial.
Yeah, yeah, somewhat controversial, but on a monarch level, which is not real people controversial. Whereas like
Yeah.
King Charles, I think, was more controversial with his divorce and Diana and
Oh,
everything.
that was a big
Much
scandal.
more controversial in his affair.
And let's
Much
face
more
it,
controversial than anything his sons have done.
Diana's much more beloved than Meghan Markle will ever be.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So speaking of royalty, another British royalty, Formula One.
oh,
We'll get into that a
the
little bit.
royalty of the automotive world.
The royalty of sport of F1. So it is Italian Grand Prix weekend, one of the classics. So one of the only Grand Prix, one of two to be run in every season of Formula One in its history. The other one being Silverstone in the UK.
Yeah. And Monza, I mean,
Um,
is a historic track.
yeah, historic track, extremely fast. I mean, they still have the 30-degree plus banking, even though they don't run it. It's still present on the outside of the
Mm-hmm.
track. But an interesting start to the race weekend. So we are recording this on Saturday after quali. Um, a lot of teams, a lot of drivers took grid penalties. Took a lot of engine units. Mainly being Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton is going to the back of the grid. So I
So
think in
basically,
total,
all the top teams, all the top
a lot,
drivers.
yeah, a lot of the top taking penalties.
Wait,
Um,
who won last year's Monza?
Last year it was Red Bull, McLaren, 1-2. That was Daniel
Really?
Ricciardo last year. Yeah,
That must
that
have
was
been the
a
last race he won.
yeah, it was, and it's one of the few races, if I think the only race McLaren's won in years. Um, so,
Hey, I got my
um,
McLaren hat on. Maybe they'll
yeah.
win tomorrow.
So, quali was day. So it started interesting in the morning because um, Alex Albon is out. He has appendicitis, so he did not participate in qualification. Will not participate in the race. So Nick DeVries, who was when he got the
F2.
call that he is needed in Williams, he was sitting in the Mercedes hospitality booth talking to the Mercedes team, and they were like, "Hey, we need you to drive at qualification over at Williams." And so he is in the car for the weekend, and he qualified top 10. We'll get into that a little bit, and but a lot of penalties helped him out there. So great job by him, I think. But getting into it, so the grid, how it looks right now with all the penalties for tomorrow. We start in outright pole position. He won it fair and square. Charles Leclerc. So that was a big win for the Tifosi in Ferrari. Leclerc just purely out qualified Max Verstappen. Verstappen qualified second. Dropped down with grid penalties. Starting
Without
next
the
to him,
penalties, how close would it have been?
he would have
Would
been
Leclerc
on. Max would have been number two.
still? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Charles outright out qualified Mats this weekend. And not sure if it's hard to say if Mats was going 110%, but he probably was. But Ferrari looked pretty strong. Carlos was very fast as well. But Carlos also taking grid penalties and dropping back. I think he's actually dropping to the very back to grid. So this is where it gets interesting. Starting alongside Leclerc is George Russell, number two, and then the boys at
Wait,
your wing.
now that's British royalty. He acts and looks like a royal.
Yeah, he looked like a royal. He could be in the royal family for all we know. But then we get into the interesting. I'm loving it. Your hat says you're loving it. The McLaren team starting 3 and 4, second row on the grid for both guys. That is huge. It's great to see them up front, even though a lot
Yeah, I
of
mean,
grid penalties.
you got to kind of
But
root for McLaren. I mean,
a
they're on
classic
the
team.
cusp. It is a classic
Yeah,
team, uh, a great British car company, British royalty again,
yeah.
throwing in some.
But it's good to see them up there, even though they got some help along the way with the grid penalties. They're at the top of the starting grid. I think they qualified like 5 and 7 or something in raw qualification, but with all the penalties, they moved up 3 and 4. After that, you have Pierre Gasly. I'll get to him in a sec because there's some interesting stuff with him. Fernando had I think, a disappointing qualification, but he's starting six after all the penalties, and then Max 7. And then right behind Max, so another interesting point um, is Nick DeVries. So filling in at Williams. DeVries
Mhm.
is a Dutchman. So there are two Dutchmen on the grid tomorrow, both one after the other, Max and Nick. So I think that is the first time two Dutchmen on the grid since mid 2000s, I want to say, if I remember them talking about it today. So it'll be interesting. The Haas guys sucked, qualified dead last. It was really, really bad. Kevin and Mick were slow. Their cars looked bad. Aston Martin also looked very bad. They looked pretty slow. So not sure what's up
Haas
with
is
those
the
two
other team
teams.
that you got to root for. I mean, one, the American
Yeah,
connection. Two, they do suck.
yeah,
I feel
but
bad for the Haas's of the world and Williams. I would really like to see them win at least one race, but
yeah,
that ain't
yeah.
going to
It's
happen.
Yeah, it was it's weird. Haas has seemed like they've kind of slowly kind of fallen off this year. So as they started really well with like Madison was like a seventh place finisher like a couple times, and they've just it felt like Kevin's just kind of fallen off throughout the year. So
Yeah.
but starting at the back, Carlos Sainz in 18th. Car to look out for. He was very fast in qualifying, and then Sir Lewis Hamilton in 19th. And then a car that was very quick in first set of qualifying laps. Didn't set a late lap because he was going back to the grid anyway. But Yuki Tsunoda in the Alpha Tauri um, is starting dead last, but he actually was in Q1. I think he was like fifth or sixth fastest. So be interesting to see if Yuki can pick up some spots from dead last.
What about Alpina? You didn't mention them. They're having some problems, aren't they, with
Yeah,
their
Alpine with
drivers?
Fernando was number 6. Yeah, he struggled a little bit. Esteban Alcon took red penalties, and he is starting 14th. So it's the grid's pretty mixed up. You got some fast drivers towards the back, fast drivers at the front, and that's one of the things I do like about grid penalties. It really mixes up the grid. So, but yeah, so it'll be interesting.
It's the handicap like you have in golf for F1.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be interesting with Monza. Monza, again, like I mentioned, one of the fastest tracks in F1. Hard track to pass on. It's pretty tight. Not a lot of corners. I think it's 82% full throttle the lap.
But it is a
So
track, so that's good.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out tomorrow with how mixed up the grid is with the McLarens up front,
What time's
Fernando
the
in front of
start time
Max.
there?
I think it's either 3 or 4 o'clock local start
6
time,
a.m. then.
so
Yeah.
6 7 a.m. for you. Um, Although you'll be out of town, so
Yeah.
a little bit different. Um, yeah. So the other interesting news that I've heard recently, two things. Porsche and Red Bull seems to be dead in the water. Porsche does not look to be taking that 2026 engine builder contract. So I think it's partly because of the Audi officially announcing their plans to enter in 2026, and then but they also I think Red
But
Bull
why
and
would that scare them off? I mean, they
at that point, I think it's kind of tough to get in. It's hard to say. I mean, Porsche and Red Bull, like they put out a press announcement saying that the talks have kind of ended. It's hard
hmm.
to say, because it was all behind closed doors why. But that was part of the other news recently is that Audi did announce. So it makes you wonder if that caused
Swayed him. Yeah.
Porsche not to be able to get into it. Um, and the other interesting thing recently, so there's still some open driver slots out there. Pierre Gasly, a Frenchman, is
We'll forgive
open,
him.
so he doesn't have he doesn't have a spot, or he doesn't have a contract with AlphaTauri next year. The French team Alpine has an open driver slot, so he's looking to go
Yeah.
over to Alpine. It's a lot of sense. Ricardo is the other kind of party there that is the wild card. But what's interesting is an American driver is in the mix for AlphaTauri spot if Pierre Gasly leaves. So Colton Herta is an American driver in IndyCar, very good in IndyCar. He has put in for a request to get a super license with the FIA. If you don't know, a super license is needed to race in Formula One. There's a series of things you must do and accomplish to get a super license, have points to get it. And Colton Herta has not accomplished those things, but he has put in for a request to get one anyway, to get approved to get one. Most
I
likely,
would
FIA is going
assume
to say
it has
no.
to be because all the drivers, when you look at their history, they come up through kind of kart racing.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I assume that's where you accumulate points based on
Yes,
finishes and
absolutely.
things.
Yeah,
And,
and
and
and Herta does have points, but he doesn't have enough. He hasn't done enough to get to the super license point for F1. But he's put in a request to for FIA to say, hey, can I just get one anyway? Um,
I wonder if they allow
but
that. That'll be
yeah,
interesting.
so remains to be seen. Most likely it won't happen, but there's interest at AlphaTauri for Colton Herta, an American, to get a seat if he gets his super license. So some
If he
interesting news to
doesn't
keep
get
an
it,
eye out on.
I just wonder if there's a way he can accumulate the points to meet that threshold, those requirements.
There is. It's just he would need to get him. Like I don't think he needs to go to like Formula 2 to get him,
I would
but
think just points in
in
Indy
IndyCar and
wouldn't it?
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of
but
like you
it's
with
interesting.
credits in
Yeah.
the U.S. versus a European university.
Yeah, yeah. But interesting possibility for an American F1. That would really supercharge interest in Formula One to have an American driver back on the grid. First
Mm-hmm.
time since 2012, I want to
Especially
say.
with 3 races next year in the
Yeah,
U.S.
that would be
and on
huge to have an
the
American
Andretti talk.
driver. Yeah.
So
So that's the F1 news. So looking forward to the race tomorrow. Predictions. What do you think? Who's gonna take it?
well, I'm kind of a Red Bull guy, and Max, as you pointed out in the past, is at a different level. Um, he's had penalties before, started in the back of the grid, and still taken it. So
14th. I
my money
agree.
would be on him, but I would love to see McLaren.
Yeah. I don't. I don't think McLaren has the race pace to keep up with any of the top three teams, unfortunately, because they are starting high. So I think they have a chance at a podium, maybe a third. I don't think, unless something happens, Max is starting seventh. Unless something happens to his car, it's hard to say he's not going to win. But I think Leclerc does have a chance with his pace today, his qualifying pace. I think he looked very fast. Carlos Sainz also looked very fast.
Yeah, but
So
Ferrari's got some bad mojo this season.
yeah, they're so if they don't screw up their strategy and if their car is reliable, big ifs, I think they like if those things happen, I think Charles will win. If something, even the slightest thing happens, if he is not perfect, if their strategy is not perfect, if they don't have an absolutely perfect race, Max will win by far.
Well,
They have to be perfect.
I mean, Ferrari's kind of the royalty of luxury F1 racing, so I kind of root against them no matter
Yeah.
who's driving. And gives me something to criticize Walter about. So I'm I'm rooting for. I'm thinking Red Bull, Max, but I'm rooting for the McLaren guys.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
I'd be thrilled to see one of the teams that just like I said, a Haas or a Williams just to make the podium, or even
Yeah.
if even if they got in the top three for a few laps near the end would be amazing.
Yeah, I think my prediction, I think it's gonna be Max, Charles, George, Lando in 4th.
Yeah,
I
George
I think
Russell.
George is so consistent. He's starting number 2.
Yeah, he's almost
He's not
robotic.
yeah, he's not nearly fast enough to keep up with Charles or Max, but he's number 3. I think he's gonna get that 3 spot. I think Lando will fight him a little bit for it, but I don't think the McLaren has enough race pace as Mercedes. So we'll see.
Mhm.
But that's my prediction for tomorrow. Unfortunately, it's tough to see a McLaren um, staying on the podium fighting that long, but we'll see. Hopefully, something
Hey,
interesting happens.
wait, talking about McLaren. I know we talked about it in the past offline. Um, wasn't Audi rumored to be?
Yeah, buying them out.
Did that die out?
Yeah, nothing. McLaren said they're not up for sale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there were rumors of it, but McLaren was like, no, we're not up for sale. So
Yeah, it just reminded me as we're talking about McLaren, we haven't really talked about that in probably a month. So
yeah, yeah. So F1, looking forward to that. Some other events that have happened local to me here. So
yeah, I want to
you
ask
may
you about
know.
these because I have
I
heard about it for many years. You've gone there. I still don't even know what the title stands for, but and I'm jumping in because Carson got to go there and everything, and I actually thought about coming back just to go to it. Uh, the Ars Electronica Festival. Um, that's all you hear about, kind of all year long, is what a big festival it is. And then you went to a second festival within the festival last night or this evening. I keep
used
forgetting
to be
about the time.
connected, not connected
Yeah,
anymore.
I mean, as you went, we looked it up a little bit. We found out they were connected. So I just wanted to kind of say reason we're talking about it because I'm very interested, and I think tourists. When you say Linz, the cruise lines of the Danube do stop in Linz. There's a very famous cathedral there. It's got a lot of history. It's a beautiful Austrian town, but it's more of an industrial town. But what I found out since you've been there, uh, in addition to being a university town, they have a lot of festivals and a lot of festivals on the lake. But these two, from what I've seen, look like the funnest and the most interesting, somewhat bizarre, and I would think a great time to go to Linz.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wouldn't say so. The other one I really enjoyed was the Street Performer Festival.
Oh, I
So
forgot about
that
that one.
was yeah, that was in July where we Linz hosts hundreds of street performers from all around the world, and that was actually very fun. By street performers like musicians,
Yeah, for people here
magicians,
in the States, that guy that paints
dancers.
himself to look like foil and puts a whistle in his mouth and acts like a robot for $1. Uh,
Yeah,
to people setting themselves on fire. I don't know. I
so
didn't get
that's
to go, but it looked interesting.
yeah, that's a weekend in July, and that was really cool. Performers from all around the world, China, South America, North America, all around Europe. Very cool.
And they have
The
to.
ones,
Are they invited, or do they have to submit their artistic
yeah.
endeavor
So
to be?
they are. You have to submit. I think they get over 2,000 applications. It gets narrowed down to over 100 that get invited to come out, and then they are scheduled for a few days throughout the weekend. Like you get a schedule and you get a set time to perform. Some
And
get
that's a
multiple
free festival.
times.
So
It's just on the streets of Linz.
yeah, an American couple coming from Ohio on a Viking cruise can get off the cruise ship and just walk through town and see the art.
Yeah. They close down all the train lines in the middle of the city, no cars, so it's all pedestrian. Gets pretty crowded, pretty cool. Um, and what's interesting is all the most of these festivals that they have in the city are free. The one you were mentioning earlier and alluding to is the Ars Electronica Festival. It is not a free festival. I would say it's
It's a very
it's
prestigious festival.
yeah, it's prestigious. So there are participants from around the world. I think 70 plus countries participated this year. Ars Electronica Festival is an art and technology festival. So it's like digital designs and that kind of cross between artistic, um, media and technology and modern technology. So you get a lot of visual representations, screens, different lighting, stuff like that. You get that cross. There's also AI technology constantly used. Robotics are very common throughout. So it's this cross between art and technology and the future. So it's very cool, and a lot of it functions around the museum of the same name, the Ars Electronica Museum here in Linz, which is a fantastic museum, um,
Right
which
on
is
the river.
focused, yeah, which is focused on kind of that in that intersection between art and technology. I think more of a technology focus. They have very cool technology exhibits, AI exhibits, uh, agriculture exhibits, music. So a lot of different stuff, and rotates quite a bit throughout the year. Um, but it's this year was I think the title of it was "Welcome to Planet B." So their focus a lot was about um, the revolution, kind of the future, what a kind of what the future will look like uh, in a either an unoptimal way or an optimal way. So like the different paths that it can go as far as climate, as far as agriculture and food, as far as law and order, migration, various subjects around kind of the future of the world. I think the primary one was like the climate change and everything. So there was a lot on that. Transportation was there, so there was some exhibits. I think BMW had a part in one exhibit, so that was kind of cool. So there's a wide variety in this theme around the future of living, the next society, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, and so it was interesting. It's I haven't been to all the different spaces. There's a lot of different events going on.
Well, I
Um,
think you need to say too is that it is a paid festival. You have to purchase a pass or a ticket. You were comped passes because you participated in the
yep.
festival. You had an exhibit. Um, and you didn't tell me how much it was, but I think you said it was pretty expensive to get the
Yeah,
4 or 5 what the
the
passes.
full event, like for every day, it was like 150 euro.
Well, that's
A
not too bad.
daily pass was like 37 euro or something like that. So it just depends on how you optimize your time, and
But
most
you
of the
have to also tell
events,
people, yeah, you found out the hard
yeah,
way is that you got to sign up in advance to get the tickets, and it could be
yeah. So
online or it could be at the door.
yeah, so event tickets were free, but you had to get a ticket to get to them, and a lot of them filled up extremely quickly, and I didn't get to see a lot of the stuff I wanted to. One thing I thought was gonna be very interesting that I unfortunately did not get to see because of this was a show called Cobot, and it was kind of the culmination of a project by a few different researchers. I think headed by one here, head of the robo psychology group here at JKU, and Cobot meaning the collaborative robotics. So humans and robots interacting, what that may look like, and what those dynamics are with how humans and robots interact. Because you think of the future and robotics assisting people, you need to be able to interact with a robot, and how you're going to interact with that. Like there is some psychology to both how the human does and how the robot reacts back to you, because you want it to be as
When he
kind
gets you
of
that
normal
beer,
as
you want him to
possible.
know it's got to be a cold beer.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things like that, when you think about, you and I conversing or just conversing in a normal public space, you're sitting at a bar or something, stuff like eye contact and cues from your eyes. Like there's a lot of information you gather from that a robot doesn't gather yet. And it's interesting to think about those little cues that people have, and how that plays into interactions with robots and humans. So unfortunately, missed that one, but that's gives you an idea of kind of the stuff that they talk about at this festival. So,
Yeah, if you're
very
into
cool
art
one.
or technology, this would be something to go see while you're if you're
Yeah,
spending time in Austria.
Yeah, so Ars Electronica Festival, the other one that I just got back from tonight was blew
which
my
looked
mind. I didn't
awesome.
really yeah, blew my mind. I didn't really know what it was until I went down there. So I didn't know it was a separate festival until we looked at it recently. So I saw it was called um, Mother Gilgamesh. I'll get
You
into
better
that in a
explain
second,
it.
but
Yeah.
it is part of the International Bruckner Fest Linz. So the Bruckner House in Linz is a concert hall, primarily classical music. This festival is a large Austrian classical music festival, and they have a lot of events. But tonight was an event called Mother Gilgamesh. It was insane. I suggest you look it up on YouTube to get these visuals because it was all about visuals and audio.
Lasers,
This
smoke.
yeah,
Yeah.
this was a retelling of part of the Epic of Gilgamesh. And if you don't know what that is, the Epic of Gilgamesh is one of the oldest stories ever told. It was said to be written and scribed over 5,000 years ago. When it was discovered, it was a set of tablets,
Hmm.
stone tablets, not iPads, that were written in Sumerian. And at the time they were discovered, no one read Sumerian. No one knew what it stood for, and it took
Hmm.
years to transcribe these into a readable language. And they don't have all the tablets; there's still missing ones. But over time, they found that it was the story of Gilgamesh, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh was a king at the time. I can't remember the name of the kingdom he ruled over, but it was a story of his travels, his friendships, battles, search for immortality. So what was shown tonight was part of that story, the story of Gilgamesh. I It was all in German, so I don't know exactly what it was. My German is still very poor,
And it's
but
an It's an opera. I don't want to say
yeah, it's
format.
a
It's on
kind of an
barges
opera.
in the river.
Yeah. So yeah, so what was interesting is it took place on the river the Danube, and it was primarily on three barges. Each barge had this incredible looking display. So you can kind of think of them as separate stages, like
Hmm.
that they would rotate through at a normal opera house. They also had a drone show, which was very cool. They had some stuff on land. They had those water propelled like jet guys where they use water jets and push themselves through the air, and they had fire attached to them. Looked epic. They had laser lights lining the banks of the river. Um, I mean, they had the
Yeah, it
audio
almost
quality
sounds
was
like
top notch.
Fourth of July Pink Floyd laser show meets Mozart kind of
Well, it was
thing
like how
on
I
the
thought of
river.
it as Cirque du Soleil
Yeah, that's her. Yeah,
with the circus turned down a little bit and the storytelling turned up a bit, I think.
yeah.
Um, but on the river, a large crowd, audio was incredible. Like you could feel the bass like in some of the songs. Fire, it was crazy, and I it's hard to like explain it all because of how epic it was, and I was just taken aback. I went down there not really knowing what it was, and when it first opened, I actually like my mouth dropped. I was stunned at the visuals they had. Like this one barge was this giant, like high def uh building basically with like a doorway and people came in and out of the doorway. And
Which
there
is
were people
amazing when you think about it because it's on a barge. So it's
when
not like it's a set theater with underground tunnels and elevators to lift people up to the stage like you would get on a major show on Broadway or Cirque du Soleil or something.
yeah, and the barges were like moving around constantly. Like they kind of intertwined and like were meshing through each other. Like they kept going to the center and pulling out
Hmm.
and going back in. Like winded their way through, so they weren't static either. So the tugboats, the push boats, that they were using were like part of the show. It was incredible.
Also, they
Like
use
just
tugboats to move them around. The barges weren't
yeah, yeah, they had
motorized.
I mean, the barges may have been it looked like tugboats, it was dark, so it was hard to see,
And this
Um,
was all free, correct?
all free, which was
Huh.
astonishing. Um, but, like an absolute, and they had like food. They had beer and wine and food, and it was the whole event. They had a music show after it, like a continued festival after that. So it wasn't just that show, but yeah, Mother Gilgamesh. Uh, I was stunned by it. It's unbelievable, the
I'll
visuals and the
look it
audio and
up
everything.
online. And the
So
weather's been good there, right?
it's been raining. So I've unfortunate for the Ars Electronica Festival. There's been a lot of rain, and a lot of the exhibitions are outside. And it's been chilly and rainy, but luckily it held out
God,
for
that
this
sounds so
Mother
good
Gilgamesh show.
because the West has been in the United States has been basically 100 degrees for weeks, and it finally
Yep.
broke today.
So, but yeah, I mean, a lot of festivals going on. As my time here in Austria, I've been amazed by the number of festivals and stuff that continues
Well,
to
I know the
happen.
last time I was there, it was there were concerts down on the Danube, but they're basically, and it is interesting how heavy metal is big, and
Yeah,
it was just a headbanger concert. I don't know who the bands were, but basically people were it was heavy metal.
yeah. And there's another festival coming up. They're about to start. They're gonna start setting up for it tonight. Actually, once this Mother Gilgamesh kind of starts to leave the autumn festival. So they have a spring and autumn one. Game like kind of a carnival gets set up along the
Mhm.
riverfront, and so that starts up soon as well. So another festival starting soon.
Well, hey, also Kiefer Sutherland coming to Linz for the second time. I'm wondering if he's living in Austria or what his deal is. I mean, it's not even a year and he's already back. So that's a show I would go to if I was there, Cars. You should go to that.
Interesting, yeah.
Where's it
So
at? Is it down on the Danube as well?
at the
In that
Bruckner
concert hall?
House,
Oh,
yeah,
it is.
at the concert
Okay.
hall, yeah. So
Okay.
um But yeah, so a lot of stuff going on, and so Monza tomorrow, festivals around Linz. You're
College football in the United
traveling.
States.
College football, NFL starts tomorrow as well.
Yeah, there's nothing like college
Um,
football.
so a lot of good stuff. So I think that's a good episode for now. So we'll call it here.
Yeah, so
Episode
two thumbs
9.
up for the festivals of Linz. If you're
Yep,
traveling and
definitely.
in the
Yeah.
area, please go visit. You'll enjoy it. And until next time.
Yep. So
And
episode
God,
9
God
again.
save the king.
God save the king. It has changed. All the money is changing, so that'll be interesting. Again, find us, on YouTube at Wits End. Find us on TikTok at Wits End _ at the end of that. Um, get some more content for us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. But see
Cheers.
y'all later.